I was on the staff at NBC in Chicago when Ted Mills came up with this idea of a thing called Saturday Square, which would be 4 or 5 little vignettes that happened all around this Chicago square. And one of them would be at an eatery known as Stud's Place. And the idea of it was to get Studs Terkel, who was, even in those days, a radio television personality, very well known in Chicago, and get with him a folk singer, and then a jazz pianist and a waitress, and that would be the group that would run this place, and then introduce into that atmosphere 1 or 2 or 3 other people who would have something, some problem, some story to act out, and it was done by outline. There was no script. There was only an outline of a story, and in 10 hours of rehearsal, we would work out the actual dialogue and so on, so that it was all ad-libbed, and it was Charlie Andrews was a writer, idea person at that time, and he was the one who wrote out the little treatments, and there was a guy by the name of Ben Park who was a very bright man and a producer there, and when he was to produce the Stud's Place, and I was going to be the floor manager, which was fine. I remembered it this way, and I'll tell you what it is now, but before I tell you what it was, about 5, 6 years ago, I met Ben Park after not seeing him for 40 years in Toronto, and we had a coffee together and so on, and after we exchanged a lot of reminiscences and so on, my mind was, I wondered, does he remember the way I remember it? And so as we walked along, he said, you know what I remember? He said, I remember that I was supposed to direct Ben was supposed to direct the first one of these Stud's Place things. And I said, you were the floor manager. And he said, every once in a while I would say something to the cast, and you would say, oh, Ben, no. You should say this. And so he said, after about 5 of those, he said, I knew you were right. He said, and the cast knew you were right. He said, I gave up. He said, you direct it, and so on. I said, well, that's the way I remember it. So it was a great, great relationship. One of the most incredible things of my life, working for that. I did 26 of those Stud's Plays, half hours, sustaining, non-commercial. In other words, we didn't have sponsor. And Studs is a great man. Later became a writer of many, many books. Incidentally, since we're talking about reminiscence here, and what do you remember and whatnot, Studs wrote a book called Conversations with Myself, in which he talks about Stud's Place and what happened. And of course, I'm in the book, naturally. I was very, very much involved. I didn't recognize it. I thought, I don't remember it that way at all. So all the time I'm talking to you now, this is the way I remember it, and I hope most of it's true.